Steam boilers have pressure gauges which show when the pressure is reaching the danger point. Signposts are placed on detours, dead-end streets, and impassable roads. Likewise, the human body has its own signals and danger signs. They are the pressure gauges and signposts which are meant to help maintain the body in health. But we need to be able to recognize these failure symptoms in ourselves so that we can do something about them. When we learn to recognize certain personality traits as signposts to failure, these symptoms can then act automatically as negative feedback and guide us down the road to creative accomplishment. No one is immune to these negative feelings and attitudes. Even the most successful personalities experience them at times. The important thing is to recognize them for what they are and take positive action to correct course. The failure personality has 7 basic characteristics, all interconnected. Each of the negatives is usually adopted as a way to solve a difficulty or a problem. Each has meaning and purpose, but is based on a mistaken premise. We can cure these failure symptoms by understanding them, seeing that they do not work. The first area is frustration. Whenever some important goal cannot be realized or some strong desire is thwarted, frustration develops. We can learn to tolerate a certain amount of frustration without becoming upset about it. It's when a frustrating experience brings excessive emotional feelings of deep dissatisfaction and futility that it becomes a symptom of failure. Chronic frustration usually means that the goals we have set for ourselves are unrealistic, or the image we have of ourselves is inadequate, or both. So we must face our goals and our self-image as truthfully as we know how and bring them close to reality. Realistic goals and an accurate self-image can go a long way toward eliminating frustration.
How do you overcome frustration? Well, you must overcome frustration by knowing some of your assets. Your liabilities is your fear. And you must remember, the misfortunes hardest to bear are those that never come. You must also remember what Aristotle said, nothing in the affairs of man is worthy too much anxiety. When you overcome your fear, you must refuse to retreat from your own identity because of frustration. You must refuse to surrender your dignity and self-respect and your self-image because of frustration. You must stop seeking excuses because you've made a mistake. You must stop living in yesterday. You mustn't carry 40 or 50 pounds of extra mental weight on your back every day of your life because of some mistake you made 14 years ago or 14 days ago. You live in the present. You rise above it. You must get rid of negative feelings. You must get rid of the depression surrounding negative feelings. Just remember, please, that negative feelings are there for you as an incentive to rise above it, to make something of yourself. That's what makes you the big you. That's what makes you the professional human being.
The second negative is aggressiveness. Emotional steam is necessary to reach a goal, but the trouble begins when we are blocked or frustrated from achieving that goal. The emotional steam is then bottled up, seeking an outlet. Misdirected or unused, it becomes a destructive force. The failure-type personality, their aggressiveness blocked in the accomplishment of a worthwhile goal, channels itself into self-destructive paths, like ulcers, high blood pressure, excessive smoking, compulsive overwork, or it may be turned on others in the form of irritability, rudeness, gossip, fault-finding. The answer to aggression is to understand it and provide appropriate channels for its expression. All types of physical exercise are excellent for draining off excess aggression, and the best way of all is to use it up as it was intended to be used, in working towards some goal. Work remains one of the best therapies and one of the best tranquilizers for a troubled spirit. The third characteristic of the failure mechanism is insecurity. A feeling of insecurity is based on an inner belief of inadequacy. If we feel that we don't measure up to what is required, we feel insecure. The problem is that we compare our actual abilities to an imagined ideal perfect self. Ideals should be thought of not as firm goals to be achieved, but abstracts to reach toward and always to reach forward. Take a bicycle. As a rider, you maintain your balance, poise, and sense of security only as you move forward. When you stop, give up, you lose the security and equilibrium you had when you were moving toward something.
How do you cope with the feeling you shouldn't succeed because your success means someone else's failure? I think it's obligatory upon you as a human being to be successful in anything you do and not worry about other people's, provided you don't step on other people and push people aside, provided you don't step on your own toes with negative feelings as you are right now. You're afraid that you won't succeed and you don't want to make an effort to do so.
The fourth negative characteristic is loneliness. Being occasionally lonely is very different from the extreme and chronic feeling of loneliness, of being cut off, alienated from other people. This type of loneliness is caused by an alienation from life, an estrangement from the needs of the real self. Because of it, human contacts are not very satisfying, and a person becomes a social recluse. Loneliness thus becomes a method of self-protection. When lines of communication and emotional ties with other people are cut, we protect our idealized selves against exposure, hurt, and humiliation. This withdrawal cuts off one of the pathways to finding oneself. Doing things with other people helps us to drop false loneliness. As we get to know others, we feel less need for pretense. We thaw, we become more natural. We feel more comfortable just being ourselves. If you are lonely, force yourself to mix and mingle with other people. It is a psychological principle that constant exposure to the object of fear immunizes against the fear. As you force yourself into social relations with other human beings, you will find that most people are friendly and will accept you. Their acceptance will enable you to accept yourself. The fifth negative of the failure mechanism is uncertainty. According to Dr. Maltz in psychocybernetics, one of the greatest mistakes you can make is to be afraid of making one. Uncertainty is a way of avoiding mistakes and responsibility. It is based on the false assumption that if no decision is made, nothing can go wrong. We must realize that a person doesn't have to be right 100% of the time. Babe Ruth, who created a long-standing record for the most home runs, also held the record for the most strikeouts. It is in the nature of things that we progress by acting, making mistakes, and correcting course. A guided missile arrives at its target literally by making a series of mistakes and continually correcting its heading. You cannot correct your heading if you are standing still. We must consider the known facts in a situation, imagine possible consequences of various courses of action, choose one that seems to offer the best solution, and bet on it. You can correct your course as you go. Many people are indecisive because they fear loss of self-esteem if they are proved wrong. Successful personalities make mistakes and admit them. It is the failure personality who is afraid to admit to being wrong. Actually, we learn more from our mistakes than from our successes. We often discover what will work by finding out what will not work. When Thomas Edison was asked if he was discouraged because of so many failures, he said, "No, I am not discouraged, because every wrong attempt discarded is another step forward." The sixth negative to avoid in the failure mechanism is resentment. When a failure-type personality looks for a reason for their failure, they often blame society, the system, life, the breaks. They resent the success and happiness of others because it is proof to them that life is shortchanging them, that they are being treated unfairly. Resentment is an attempt to make our own failure palatable by explaining it in terms of unfair treatment, injustice. As a salve for failure, resentment is a cure that is worse than the disease. It is a deadly poison to the spirit, makes happiness impossible, and uses up tremendous energy which could go into accomplishment. Resentment is also a way of making us feel important. Many people get a perverse satisfaction from feeling wronged. The victim of injustice, the one who has been unfairly treated, feels morally superior to those who supposedly caused the injustice. Resentment is also an emotional rehashing or refighting of some event in the past. You cannot win because you are attempting to do the impossible, change the past. Resentment, even when based upon real injustices and wrongs, soon becomes an emotional habit. Habitual resentment invariably leads to self-pity, which is the worst possible emotional habit anyone can develop, according to Dr. Maltz. When these habits take over, a person doesn't feel right or natural when they are absent. One begins to look for, search for injustices. One feels good only when one is miserable. Remember, your resentment is not caused by other persons, events, or circumstances. It is caused by your own emotional response, your own reaction. You alone have power over this, and you can control it if you firmly convince yourself that resentment and self-pity are not ways to happiness and success, but ways to defeat and unhappiness. As long as you harbor resentment, it is literally impossible for you to picture yourself as a self-reliant, independent, self-determining person. Resentful people turn over their reins to other people. They are wholly dependent upon them, make unreasonable demands and claims upon them. They feel everyone should be dedicated to making them happy, and are resentful when it doesn't work out that way. Resentment is inconsistent with creative goal striving. In creative goal striving, you are the actor, not the passive recipient. No one owes you anything. You set your own goals. You become responsible for your own success and happiness. Resentment doesn't fit into this picture, and because it doesn't, it is a failure mechanism.
You have self-respect when you don't hate yourself. You have self-respect if you don't hate yourself because you won't hate another human being. You have self-respect when you have compassion for yourself and with other people. You have self-respect when you stop hurting other people by unkind cuts and criticism. You have self-respect when you stop criticizing yourself that you're nobody when you're somebody. You have self-respect when you get rid of uncertainty, when you get rid of resentment, and when you understand your needs and the needs of other people. You have self-respect when you create opportunities for yourself. Opportunity doesn't knock. Opportunity, you hear it inside. If it knocks inside because you are opportunity. You create it. You develop it. When you create these opportunities, you enlarge the scope of your self-respect. You enlarge the scope of your self-respect and improve your self-image when your goal is realistic within your capabilities. When you have confidence that you can reach it, when you accept yourself for what you are, when you look in the mirror, got to see you, win, lose, or draw.
The seventh characteristic of the failure personality is emptiness. Many people seem to be successful in spite of frustration, misdirected aggressiveness, and resentment, but all too often their lives are empty because they lose the capacity to enjoy. When you have lost the capacity to enjoy, no amount of wealth or anything else can bring success or happiness. No goal is worth working for. Life is a terrible bore. Nothing is worthwhile. Emptiness is a symptom that you are not living creatively. You either have no goal that is important enough to you, or you are not using your talents and efforts in striving toward an important goal. The person who has no purpose or goal concludes that life itself is not worthwhile. But the individual who is actively engaged in striving toward an important goal has no time for pessimistic philosophies concerning the meaninglessness, the futility of life. Emptiness can become a way of avoiding effort, work, and responsibility. It becomes an excuse, a justification for non-creative living. Emptiness may also be the symptom of an inadequate self-image. The person who holds an unworthy, undeserving self-image may achieve a genuine success, and then be unable to accept it psychologically, and therefore unable to enjoy it. Real success never hurt anyone. Striving for goals which are important to you, not as status symbols, but because they are consistent with your own deep inner wants, is healthful. Striving for real success through creative accomplishment brings a deep inner satisfaction. Striving for false success to please others brings false and fleeting satisfaction. Now that we have gone over the 7 characteristics of a negative personality, you should watch for them and deal with them, but don't brood over them. Your automobile is equipped with negative indicators on the dash panel which tell you when the battery is not charging, when the engine is becoming too hot, when the oil pressure is becoming too low. To ignore these negatives might ruin the car, but you don't need to become too upset when a negative signal flashes. It doesn't mean the car is no good. You should merely take prompt, positive action. As the driver of the car, you of course don't look at the control panel exclusively and continuously. Most of the time you look out through the windshield, keeping your primary attention on your goal, where you are going. You merely glance quickly at the negative indicators from time to time. Adopt a similar attitude towards your own negative symptoms. Don't dwell on them, but be aware of negatives so that you can correct them. Negative thinking can work for us to lead us to success, according to Dr. Maltz in psychocybernetics, if, 1, we are sensitive to the negative to the extent that it can alert us to danger. 2, we recognize the negative for what it is, something undesirable, something we don't want, something that does not bring genuine happiness. 3, we take immediate corrective action and substitute an opposite factor from the success mechanism. Such practice will in time create an automatic reflex, which becomes a part of our inner guidance system. Negative feedback will act as a sort of automatic control to help us steer clear of failure and guide us to success.
Tell yourself that it's only natural for people to be frustrated about something during the day, but it is destructive to carry some frustrations from the past on your back. Imagine the absurdity of carrying a 50-pound burden of past frustrations on your back and not being able to lay it down. Remember that when you're frustrated, you're actually cheating yourself. Resolve to forget past vexations now. Substitute a positive in the present for a negative in the past. This is how you change from unhappiness to happiness. Say to yourself, I've wasted too many hours worrying about the mistakes of the past, the hurt feelings, the hours wasted that I could have used helping others to improve myself. I quit right now. I know that I can't be a friend to others until I'm a friend to myself. You can remove your emotional scars by plastic surgery of compassion. Here are some miracle drugs for emotional scars. You might try them. Forgive others. They're just as fallible as you are. They're not gods and they're not machines. They're just human beings like yourself. Forgive yourself. Forget your own mistakes. Stop torturing yourself with self-blame. Keep up with yourself, not with others. See yourself at your best. Picture yourself in a situation you've relished, when things seem to fit into place and your world was as you like it. Recapture the good feelings of those moments. Keep these rather than your failure feelings alive in your mind.
In this way, you can heal your emotional scars and immunize yourself against further emotional injury. Once you begin to like yourself better, you undo the damage of the past. you will be ready to move toward the achievements of success that are realistic for you and toward the cultivation of constructive habits that lead to happiness. Here are your 10 principles of overcoming unhappiness. 1.
Unhappiness means loneliness. No one can make you lonely without your consent.
2.
Unhappiness means loss of your true identity. No one can make you lose your identity without your consent.
3.
Unhappiness means limitation, separation from self, from others. You put yourself in your own jail. Remember, no one could put you there without your consent.
4.
Psychologically, you must let the telephone ring. Create a tranquilizer between you and negative feelings. In subtropical countries, people use an umbrella to avoid sunstroke. Use a mental umbrella to avoid a tension stroke.
5.
In place of an old habit of over-responding to tension, substitute a new habit of delaying response.
6.
Keep your eye on the ball, your daily productive goal.
7.
Stop fighting negative forces in your mind.
8.
Think of a geyser letting off steam, a symbol for you to release your tensions.
9.
Relaxation is your built-in tranquilizer. Use it continually in all your pursuits.
10.
Your self-image is your emotional and spiritual thermostat. Keep it well regulated. Let it pulse with enthusiasm, not with despair.
To sum up, unhappiness is curable when you realize that no one can make you unhappy without your consent. You and you alone can turn a negative habit into a positive one. Remember that happiness is communicable health. You can catch it if you wish to. What causes emotional scars?
Real or imagined injury, hurt feelings, remorse, guilt, heartache, or resentment. In short, all the negative feelings that human beings are heir to.
What is the result of these scars?
Protection against all other people.
What does this protection do to me?
It walls you off from other humans and your own real self.
Why do many juveniles, as well as some adults, act as if they hate everyone in authority?
They were once hurt by someone they trusted. They then fear further exposure to possible injury. So they react with suspicion and hostility and drive away those who would love them if given a chance.
What do emotional scars do to my self-image?
You see yourself as unliked and unaccepted by a hostile world. Thus, you actually disfigure your own self-image.
How do emotional scars affect my more creative living?
They block self-fulfillment. They steer you away from your goals. You must realize that it is you and you alone who are in a position to remove your emotional scars. You must nourish your self-respect and develop confidence in your own sense of direction.
What is a self-fulfilled person?
A person who sees himself as liked, wanted, acceptable, and able. A person who feels oneness with others. He possesses a rich store of information and knowledge.
Are you born self-fulfilled?
No. Self-fulfillment has to be achieved.
What are 3 rules for immunizing yourself against emotional hurts?
Be too big to feel threatened. Have a self-reliant, responsible attitude. Relax away emotional hurts.
How can one be too big to feel threatened?
Develop self-esteem. You must retain respect for yourself, even though you fail in an undertaking. You must always rise above a failure and try to reach your full stature of dignity as a real, fulfilled person.
How do I learn to relax away my emotional hurts?
Program yourself for pleasant thinking. Concentrate on building self-confidence, esteem, self-expansion. Re-evaluate your beliefs. Live creatively.
Why do I feel hurt?
By choice. You do not have to respond at all times with negative feelings. Your negative feelings are there for you to rise above. You must learn to stand up under stress by remaining relaxed and free. You must see that you should not make mountains out of molehills. Be too big to be threatened by one error. The happiness principle. The happiness principle, in simple terms, means this: the more you share your happiness with others, the more you have yourself. It also means the happier you are, the wiser you are. And finally, happiness is good as unhappiness is evil. When you're happy, the glorious things in nature are more visible. The flowers smell better. The sound of a rippling brook is more distinct. Food tastes better. The hand of friendship is firmer, and your voice has more life to it. On the other hand, when you're unhappy, you cannot see the beauty without and within. You don't hear as well as you could. Nothing smells right. The food doesn't taste right. Your touch is benumbed, and your voice is lost in loneliness. Happiness is internal. It means clear perception within you, where you see the possibilities of becoming bigger and better than what you are for yourself and for others, sharing your good fortune with others who need your goodwill desperately. In unhappiness, your spiritual vision is clouded by a mental cataract. When you cannot see the good in you, when you cannot be kind to yourself or wise enough to realize that loneliness and fear are your blind spots. Remember the words of John Masefield, the famous poet laureate of England. The days that make us happy make us wise.
Dr. Maltz says that personality is not so much something that is acquired from without as something that is released from within. This real self within every person is attractive. It is magnetic. It does have a powerful impact and influence upon other people. We have the feeling that we are in touch with something real and basic, and it does something to us. On the other hand, a phony is universally disliked and detested. When we say that a person has a good personality, what we really mean is that this person has freed and released the creative potential within oneself and is able to express his or her real self. Poor personality and inhibited personality are one and the same. The person with a poor personality does not express the creative self within. He has restrained it, handcuffed it, locked it up, and thrown away the key. The inhibited personality has imposed restraint upon the expression of the real self. People like this are afraid to express themselves, afraid to be their self, and have locked up their real self within an inner prison. The symptoms of inhibition are many and varied. Shyness, timidity, self-consciousness, hostility, feelings of excessive guilt, insomnia, nervousness, irritability, inability to get along with others. Frustration is characteristic of practically every area and activity of the inhibited personality. Their real and basic frustration is their failure to be themselves and to adequately express themselves. But this basic frustration is likely to color and overflow into all that they do. The science of cybernetics gives us a new insight into the inhibited personality and shows us the way toward disinhibition, freedom, and how to release our spirits from self-imposed prisons. Negative feedback in a servo mechanism is equivalent to criticism. Negative feedback says you are wrong, you are off course, you need to take corrective action to get back on the beam. The purpose of negative feedback, however, is to modify response and change the course of forward action, not to stop it altogether. Negative feedback says what you are doing is wrong, but it does not say it is wrong to do anything. When negative feedback is excessive, or where our own mechanism is too sensitive to negative feedback, the result is not modification of response, but total inhibition of response. Inhibition and excessive negative feedback are one and the same. When we overreact to negative feedback, we are likely to conclude that not only is our present course slightly off beam or wrong, but that it is wrong for us even to want to go forward. Have you ever noticed that when you try very carefully to do something like thread a needle or pour liquid into a very small neck bottle, that very often your hand is steady until you try to accomplish your purpose? Then for some strange reason you quiver and shake. This is called purpose tremor, when you're trying too hard to accomplish a task. Excessive carefulness, or being too anxious not to make an error, is a form of excessive negative feedback. The result is inhibition and deterioration of performance. Excessive carefulness and anxiety are close kin. Both have to do with too much concern for possible failure, or doing the wrong thing and making too much of a conscious effort to do right. Just like when your bicycle chain is too tight, your carefulness and conscientiousness may be so tense that it hinders the running of your mind. When you become too consciously concerned about what others think, when you become too careful to consciously try to please other people, when you become too sensitive to the real or fancied disapproval of other people, then you have excessive negative feedback, inhibition, and poor performance. Whenever you constantly and consciously monitor your every act, word, or manner, again you become inhibited and self-conscious. You become too careful to make a good impression, and in so doing choke off, restrain, inhibit your creative self, and end up making a rather poor impression. The way to make a good impression on other people is never consciously try to make a good impression on them. Never act or fail to act purely for consciously contrived effect. Never wonder consciously what the other person is thinking of you, how he is judging you. Poise is the attitude of being immune to strangers or strange situations, a total disregard for all the unknown or unexpected. It is the deliberate setting aside of all fears arising from new and uncontrollable circumstances. If you are among the millions who suffer unhappiness and failure because of inhibition, you need to deliberately practice disinhibition. You need to practice being less careful, less concerned, less conscientious. You need to practice speaking before you think, instead of thinking before you speak. Acting without thinking, instead of thinking or carefully considering before you act. Balance and harmony are what is needed. When the temperature has gone too high, the doctor attempts to lower it. When it has sunk too low, he attempts to raise it. When a person cannot sleep enough, a prescription is given to make the patient sleep more. It is not a question of which is best. The cure lies in taking a long step in the opposite direction. Once again, the principle of cybernetics enters into the picture. Our goal is an adequate, self-fulfilling, creative personality. The path to the goal is a course between too much inhibition and too little. When there is too much, we correct course by ignoring inhibition and practicing more disinhibition. Here are the feedback signals which tell you whether you are off course because of too much or too little inhibition. If you continually get yourself into trouble because of overconfidence, if you habitually rush in where angels fear to tread, if you habitually find yourself in hot water because of impulsive, ill-considered actions, if projects backfire on you because you always practice acting first and asking questions later, if you can never admit you're wrong, if you are a loud talker and a blabbermouth, you probably have too little inhibition. You need to think more of consequences before acting. You need to stop acting like a bull in a china shop and plan your activities more carefully. However, the great majority of people do not fall in that category. If you are shy around strangers, if you dread new and strange situations, if you feel inadequate, worry a lot, are anxious, overly concerned, if you are nervous and feel self-conscious, if you have any nervous symptoms such as facial tics, blinking your eyes unnecessarily, tremor, difficulty in going to sleep, if you feel ill at ease in social situations, if you hold yourself back and continually take a back seat, then these are all symptoms showing that you have too much inhibition. You are too careful in everything. You plan too much. You should practice these exercises. 1. Don't wonder in advance what you are going to say. Just open your mouth and say it. Improvise as you go along. 2. Don't plan or think before you act. Act and correct your actions as you go along. 3. Stop criticizing yourself. The inhibited person indulges in self-critical analysis continually. Don't say to yourself, I wonder if I should have done that, or maybe I shouldn't have said that, or maybe the other person will take it the wrong way. Conscious self-criticism or self-analysis on a moment-by-moment or day-by-day basis is defeating. 4. Make a habit of speaking louder than usual. Inhibited people are notoriously soft-spoken. Raise the volume of your voice. You don't have to shout at people and use an angry tone. Just consciously practice speaking louder than usual. Loud talk in itself is a powerful disinhibitor. 5. Let people know when you like them. The inhibited personality is as afraid of expressing good feelings as bad ones. Don't be afraid to express love. Compliment others without worrying about them thinking it is superficial or having an ulterior motive. Totally ignore all these negative feedback signals. If you like what someone is doing, wearing, or saying, let him or her know it. If we are habitually frustrated by failure, we are very apt to acquire habitual feelings of failure, which color all new undertakings. But by arranging things so that we can succeed in little things, we can build an atmosphere of success which will carry over into larger undertakings. We can gradually undertake more difficult tasks, and after succeeding in them, be in a position to undertake something even more challenging. Success is literally built upon success, and there is much truth in the saying, nothing succeeds like success. The principle is merely to start with an opponent over which you can succeed, and gradually take on more and more difficult tasks. Everyone has at some time or another been successful in the past. It does not have to have been a big success. What you succeed in is not so important as the feeling of success which attended it. All that is needed is some experience where you succeeded in doing what you wanted, in achieving what you set out to achieve, and something that brought you some feeling of satisfaction. Go back in memory and relive those successful experiences. In your imagination, revive the entire picture in as much detail as you can. The more detailed you can make it, the better. If you can remember in sufficient detail just what happened when you were successful at some time in the past, you will find yourself feeling just as you felt then. You will find yourself feeling self-confident, because self-confidence is built upon memories of past successes. Dr. Maltz recommends that we forget and ignore those unhappy experiences from the past and concentrate upon the happy and pleasant. By so doing, we strengthen the thought patterns having to do with success and happiness, and weaken those having to do with failure and unhappiness. Remember, you are a responsible person, able to cope with your past and plan your future, as opposed to being a helpless victim of your past experiences. This concept does carry a responsibility, however. No longer can you derive sickly comfort from blaming your parents, society, your early experiences, or the injustices of others for your present troubles. These things may and should help you understand how you got where you are. Blaming them, or even yourself for the past mistakes, however, will not solve your problem or improve your present or your future. There is no merit in blaming yourself. The past explains how you got here, but where you go from here is your responsibility. The choice is yours. Like a broken phonograph, you can keep on playing the same old broken record of the past, reliving past injustices, pitying yourself for past mistakes, all of which reactivates failure patterns and failure feelings which color your present and your future. Or, if you choose, you can put on a new record and reactivate success patterns and that winning feeling which helps you do better in the present and promises a more enjoyable future. When your phonograph is playing music you don't like, you do not try to force it to do better. You do not use effort or willpower. You do not bang the phonograph around. You do not try to change the music itself. You merely change the record being played, and the music takes care of itself. Use the same technique on the music that comes out of your own internal machine. Don't pit your will directly against the music. As long as the same mental imagery occupies your attention, no amount of effort will change the music. Instead, try putting a new record on. Change the mental imagery, and the feelings will take care of themselves.
I'd like you to come with me on a voyage. It's a voyage of discovery. I'd like you to come with me on a voyage on the vast inner spaces of your mind to find a very, very important treasure. This treasure is yourself. I'd like you to come with me in a room of your mind, in a playhouse of your mind, in a theater of your mind, with a stage upon which I stand. I'd like you to see yourself on this stage as a detective, a modern Sherlock Holmes with a magnifying glass, searching for the hurt feelings within you, to discover them, to release yourself from these feelings. I'd like you to be more than a modern detective discovering the evil within you, but to discover something far more important, the good within you. I'd like you to be an archaeologist, digging for the treasure of your self-respect and dignity as a human being in God's image, to dig under the debris of failure, of mistakes, of hurt feelings, of resentment, to find that side of you that truly belongs to you, that is you. That side of you is in God's image. I'd like you to see yourself on this stage as a person with tattoo marks on your arm, a displaced person within yourself, displaced because of hurt feelings, because of negative feelings, because of frustrations, and it is in your power to displace yourself back to where you belong. I ask you to come with me on a new voyage of discovery where you are your own Galileo, seeing the sun within you as your personality rotates about it. I should like you to imagine that you have, like Balboa, discovered the Pacific, that vast area of peace within your mind that can be yours. I asked you to be a friend to yourself, for only in that realization can you be a friend to someone else. I asked you to think of yourself and believe in yourself as a successful human being, for only then can you be a success outside of yourself. I ask you to be yourself, to understand your rights, to evoke the better part of you, to see yourself at your best. You can do that by walking into this room of your mind, into this playhouse, this theater of your mind, where you will do one thing: relax. People with tension, with hurt feelings, with fear, cannot relax. They can only be self-confident and succeed in their undertaking, no matter how small it may be, if they are relaxed. So that the first important thing to do, if you are to get to know the better part of yourself, is learn to relax in the theater of your mind, where you do a few simple things. The first thing you do is forgive others. Don't carry grudges. More important, forgive yourself. See yourself at your best. In this room of your mind, you imagine. You see through a window a geyser letting off steam. This is a symbol for you to let go of the tensions for a moment, to let go of the electric circuit of distress and depression, so that you can renew and replenish your energies for the worries that may come tomorrow. The business of living is not to be successful. The business of living is to rise above a failure, to rise above a mistake. This is what gives you the strength to your intellectual fibers. This is what gives you a sense of self-confidence, that you can be and are in God's image and can accomplish goals within your capabilities. On this stage of your mind, you are in the audience, you are on the stage, you are the writer, you are the performer, and you can change the script. You can see yourself on one occasion as the worried, fretful person, the person of frustration. At another occasion, you can see yourself as the confident person, with a smile on your face, with a smile on your self-image. Now, these two people are you. They're two aspects of you. You will learn to concentrate on the confident part of yourself, to which you are heir, and to declare war on the negative feelings that create the person of distress. I stand here and talk to you from the stage. Am I alone? Or is there someone with me? Is it just my face that you see? Or is it as I speak to you to give you part of what I have? Is it that you see the face behind my face, the face of my mind? I call this face of my mind the stranger within. We all have a stranger within us only because we are not aware of him. This stranger can be your friend. This stranger can be your enemy. You are the one who makes the choice. You are the one who controls this stranger within. He does not control you. You are the one that has the capacity, if you understood this stranger within, to decide, to discard the worried, fretful, discordant, and disconsolate person that you can be, and the person of confidence gained from our past experiences when we were happy, these experiences that we use in the undertaking of our present goal. This stranger needn't be a stranger. He can be your best friend if you learn to realize that you can dispose of your negative feelings, forget the past, forget the mistakes of yesterday, because the business of living is to live now. This day, today. Today is 24 hours of a lifetime. You can and must make the best of it. And when you do, when you discard the hurt feelings, the negative feelings of the past, the frustrations, the hatred, those negative feelings that take you away from yourself, from people, that produce loneliness, it is within your capabilities to discard this aspect of you by knowing that you have a success mechanism within you working for you, helping you achieve the dignity that is within you. You must learn not to keep up with the Joneses. You must learn to keep up with yourself. You must learn to know this stranger within, this heartbeat of your mind, this thermostat of your emotions, because you control this stranger. You can make him your best friend. We, as we practice the art of living with our fears and our joys every day, do not realize that we have a servo mechanism within our brain, a tape recorder of all our past experiences, the happy ones, the unhappy ones. And if we, in our present undertaking, recall the past failures, the past resentments, we automatically cannot succeed, because you cannot think positively with negative feelings any more than you can think negatively when you have positive feelings. We have this success mechanism within us, and it is there for us to develop. It is a sense of direction, a goal every day, the understanding of the needs of others, the courage to stand up under tension, the respect for yourself before you can achieve the respect of others. Self-acceptance, accepting yourself for what you are, not trying to keep up with the Joneses. Animals have a certain success mechanism. Birds, when it's cold, fly south to warm weather to protect themselves, to survive. A squirrel who was born in the spring, you'll find this squirrel seeking nuts and hiding them for the winter, though this squirrel has never seen a winter. We too have a success mechanism to live successfully in God's image if we can understand that the difference between the animal and the human is this part of the brain, the forebrain, our desires, our hopes, our goals, our achievements. If you know this self-image of yours, you can teach yourself to rise to your full stature of self-respect as a human being by remembering that you came to this world to succeed, to be a success, and not a failure. You do this and you achieve the knowledge of yourself and understand your self-image through the power of your imagination. Imagination is not given just to the poets. You are a poet within yourself. You have imagination, and you use it every day. I've asked you to come with me in a room of your mind. I ask you to be an archaeologist and dig beneath the debris of hurt feelings to find yourself, the good in you, the self-respect that belongs to you. I asked you to come with me on this voyage of discovery of yourself, where you'll be your own detective. And through the magnifying glass, look at yourself and find that you are better than what you think you are. I ask you to be your own plastic surgeon by uprooting the evil within you. I will give you a medical kit of 12 things that will make you be your own plastic surgeon and lift your spirit to its full stature. To thine own self be true, Shakespeare said. Remember that. Use your imagination constructively. Relax for a few minutes every day. See yourself at your best. Have that winning feeling that all human beings are capable of. Unmask yourself. Don't have to live in pretense. Have compassion, not only for others, but for yourself. Understand your rights as a human being. Never retire from yourself or from life. It's antagonistic to the process of living. Find your true worth. Accept yourself for what you are. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses. How much more fascinating it is to join with me on this great adventure of finding yourself, of improving your God's image that's within you. Thank you.
This has been an Audio Renaissance presentation.